The Case of the Derelict Daughter. 5. The Family. Moretti was hanging out on my little front porch when I arrived. I made sure that I had all my weapons and headed toward the door. Moretti took one last drag off his cigarette and pointed. "Who's that coming down the road behind your sister there?" he asked. And sure enough, there was a Chevy SUV following Samuel Dean and his old Bronco. I sighed. Well, I thought the old prick would have retired by now. "Who?" Moretti asked. "Jensen Bridgers, sheriff, since these parts. Since Moses, I think," I told the federal agent, whatever agency he was with. "God damn it, Bridgers, what the hell is wrong with you?" Sam demanded when the sheriff finally drug his old fat ass out of the vehicle. I just stood waiting for the thing that would push me over the edge, the one word the one man would invariably say. His anger wouldn't let him do anything else. "Because this son of a bitch," Bridgers waved his hand in my direction, "should have been locked up already." Fucking coppers, I began, finally lighting that bent cigar. Always think they know the truth before they even investigate, don't they? "You son of a bitch," Bridgers growled and then stalked toward me. "You said that," I pointed out, blowing smoke. "Just leave, old man, please." I didn't like the old bastard, but she was his granddaughter and wouldn't have wanted me to. God damn the man. "I told you when you left," he began. "I know, you fucking idiot," I snapped and stalked over to the old man. "I don't want to be here any more than you want me here. But there are girls going missing, and I've been asked to investigate. I grew up here, and you evidently can't get the traction with the feds that I can." He started to say her name. I knew it was in him, and if he had, my anger would have boiled over and someone would have died. But he evidently thought better of it. I waited. See? Diplomacy. I can do it too. "Wolf Pass," he said and spat to the side. "Is that where the cult's set up?" I asked, bringing out that notebook. Yeah, turns out I can't call it the handy-dandy notebook. Old Blue did copyright that shit. Can't trust anyone, I guess. He looked at me, the dislike evident on his face. "Kane, that ain't no cult. That out there is something else, something weird." "Consider, if you will," a new voice, one I didn't recognize, added to the conversation, "that the place was first called Salem, Texas." I wrote it down, frowning. The accent wasn't anything I'd readily recognized. Not that I was very worldly, but it sounded to me sort of Mediterranean, almost. Looking up, I froze. It was like looking in a goddamn mirror. Even the same ugly birthmark on his cheek, though his was covered up partially by a bushy black beard. His hair was a bit darker, and his eyes a chocolate brown that shined with something. Not light, no. "It was known as the home of the first coven in these lands," the voice finished. I put away my notebook. "I don't know you, but I don't believe in fairy tales." I heard Kitty Renard laugh then. It was kind of like Cookies and Hearts. You know, that sickly sweet kind of sound, and sarcastic for some reason. "Jackson Kane," came another voice, a voice I knew only too well. "Meet your father, Jeremiah Kane." "How's that?" the old sheriff asked, scratching his head. "If anything, can't be more than a couple years apart. Say 35. Jensen," Sam said. "You know me and Jackson more than 40 years. You popped us once when we were kids stealing those soda pops, remember?" "Well, 45 then or something," he grumped. I went inside. Everyone else could kiss my balls. I was hungry and tired of the games. Nothing but coppers and spooks in my yard, and all of them a real pain in my ass. The only 3 that came in the house after me were Dragomir, this Jeremiah dude, and Kitty herself. I sat down and waited for everyone else to do the same. We ordered pizza, the Russian said as he sat down last. The new guy sat across from me, like looking at a goddamn reflection. Kitty to his right and Dragomir next to me. I saw how this would go down if anything dirty turned up. Dragomir was watching me, and I could almost feel his arm tense, as if he were ready to go for his own shoulder holster. And for some unfathomable reason, Kitty, the dame never showing her hand, was positioning herself to do exactly the same for me that Dragomir was seeming to do for this goon that looked like he could have been my twin brother. Witches? I asked finally. Dragomir held up a hand. Let me get some coffee, he said and left. Father, huh? I asked. The dude just shrugged. Well, shit. He wasn't going to talk. Not directly to me, not without the old Russian there. Well, since you are taking that position, let me speak for a moment. Just an old gumshoe doing detective work. He shrugged again, looking disinterested. I play off a finger. First, you aren't old enough to be my father. Second, I ticked up another finger. You do look like me, but I wouldn't trust anyone as ugly as all that. I popped up a third finger. 3, you start off talking about witches, and I don't believe in anything I can't see with my own eyes. Dragomir returned, passing steaming mugs around. Distracted, I took a tentative sip, and it, to my great surprise, was not coffee at all, but chocolate, hot chocolate. The bastard winked at me and sat. It was peppermint hot chocolate, in fact, my favorite. First, Dragomir pointed to the man, that man is your father. Though the reason he looks the way he does will come apparent later. I knew him because he saved me as a child. An infant, in fact. I've known him all my life. Jackson. I nodded and let him continue, though I patted my coat looking for that other cigar. There were supposed to be 2 in that little package. I purchased $5. Tobacco taxes. My mother and father were, at the time, attempting to sacrifice me to a demon. I raised my eyebrows. Oh, really? With the cigar bobbing in my mouth and Zippo lit, I said the word as if it had no meaning, nor did his obvious fantastic story have any meaning for me either. Yes, he growled, completely understanding what I was getting at. She was a witch, and a wizard, or fancying himself as such, and a witch in the true biblical sense. Yeah, demons and such, I said, trying not to call them all on their bullshit right there. I disrupted the ritual, Jeremiah finished, and understanding the power was involved, had the child placed with understanding couple who knew of the gift and could raise Caliban in that tradition. I see. I puffed on my cigar, the overly sweet thing almost making me choke. And that was what, 60 years ago or something? Over 350, Dragomir stated. I looked at each of them. In their eyes, even in Kitty's, and no one seemed to be lying. I'm usually pretty good at picking up on that kind of thing. Usually tell a liar a mile away. And how the hell do you expect me to believe that load of shit? You take me for some kind of stoolie or shill that will just take any old story you want? My temper was coming up. Calm down, Dragomir. And there was a gentleness in his voice I'd never heard from him before. It doesn't finish there. He nodded at the guy who looked like me. I thwacked his mother. The witch, she disappeared. And the man said, but some years back I met a good Hebrew girl, and we were married, and you were born. I scratched my head, cigar in hand, so confused that I'd not noticed if I'd even caught my hair on fire. Okay, not sure what one has to do with the other there, fella. The woman was the witch, and what is called a glamour or in disguise, he finished. I stood up and looked around the room. What's the con already, okay? Because you spooks are playing the mind games, and I'm not into that. No con, Jackson came. At least, Kitty trailed off. The witch, her name was Alice of the Green from Ireland. Is Alice Green your mother and mine? And now a senator's wife, Jackson. All right, I said, just humoring them at this point because I'd seen something when I stood. The man, this Jeremiah Kane, didn't flinch when I stood, but he sure did move. And then I saw it. Something I'd been looking for over 15 fucking years. Something that I knew had been taken as a... I sat very carefully and listened very closely. So the teen wife of an old-ass senator is also mother to a 300-year-old man, me, who's nearly 50, and the wife to another guy who looks about 50. I just don't get it, I said, acting as if I were reaching to scratch under my arm. You are of my line, Jackson, the line of Cain. We are the line of that Cain, cursed to walk the world forever. I had hoped to keep this from you. This is why I was gone. I watched and listened, something growing in my belly, deep down, an animal, a creature, something hot and filled with white rage. And do you remember what Cain's sin was, Jackson? The man continued, and I nodded. What was it? The man knew. He knew. I could see it in his ugly fucking smile. He lied to the face of God, I said, my voice almost low, a growl. And not the murder of his brother, Cain laughed, leaning back, waiting for me to make my move. The pain I saw behind his eyes, though, that shit was apocalyptic. Well, I began, and I whipped out my old Colt 45 out of its holster and pointed at the man's ugly fucking face. I do know a liar when I hear one, though. Oh, you believe you're my father, but you aren't this Jeremiah Kane. That's a fiction. So, just who the fuck are you? I cocked the hammer and put light pressure on the trigger. I guess I had become Alec Baldwin after all. Because the only person who could have that little charm, I nodded at his wrist, around their wrist, would be the predator that took my Sarah from me. I made it, so I know it on sight. It was a little silver cross. I made it in shop class when we were playing around with smelting. And it was bent and ugly, just like me, but Sarah said that was why she loved it so much. I pulled the trigger. Fuck the spooks, the absent father, the supposed brother, and the two coppers outside. I was tired of this fucking con, and I needed justice for Sarah. And by God, I was going to have it.